Hi friends, this is Lea Lawson and welcome back to the Pinkfresh Studio YouTube channel. Today we're doing a tips and tricks video on lightening our liquid watercolor. We offer a set of liquid watercolor in 12 vibrant and beautiful shades, including all the colors of the rainbow plus black and brown. And while you can absolutely use these colors in their original vibrant shade, I do want to show today how you can also lighten them up and use them in a little bit of a lighter form. So I just have a piece of watercolor paper and I'm using a water brush, and we are starting with the Bubblegum pink, and that is the bubblegum in its original vibrant form. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe off my water brush, get it a little damp, and then I'm going to pull that pink out to give that nice ombre effect, shading it from the darker, more vibrant pink to the lighter tone that you see at the very end. Another way that you can lighten these watercolors is by adding water directly to the watercolor itself. And then when you apply it to your watercolor paper, you're going to notice it's significantly lighter in tone. You'll have to use a little bit more if you want to keep a little bit of vibrancy. And then same as before, you can pull that out with your water brush in an ombre fashion to give it a little bit of shading. So off camera, I went ahead and I did that same technique in red, but now we're going to do it in aqua so you can actually see it in a different color family. The aqua is a really beautiful greenish blue shade, and it is really, really vibrant when it starts out. This is one of my favorite colors in our liquid watercolor, and it's just this perfect green blue. But the awesome thing is, just like the pink and the red, just by dabbing off the original watercolor and using your water brush to pull it out, you get that nice, beautiful ombre shade. And same as before, you can also just add water into the droplet of watercolor itself to lighten it as well. And you can do that same ombre shading with your water brush. So I prefer to use a water brush when I'm working with our liquid watercolors because I can dab it off on a towel. That's just a microfiber towel over there. And you don't have to constantly clean out a water dish. So there's one exception to the vibrancy in all of our liquid watercolors, and that is this lovely sky blue color. When you see me put it directly to the watercolor paper here, you're going to notice it's just not as vibrant. And that's the point of sky blue. It's meant to be this really light blue, perfect for creating skies and things like that. So, but you can still get that nice shading technique done with your water brush, and you can also directly add water into it to make it lighter, just like all the other colors. Now, if you're not a fan of water brushes, you can absolutely use a standard watercolor brush. You just might have to change out your water reservoir more often because these colors are very vibrant, and after a while you will start to notice that the colored water will start transferring into your other tones. So I suggest practicing that fade out when you get the set of liquid watercolors from Pinkfresh Studio on. You can do just an inexpensive or a scrap piece of watercolor paper. But I wanted to show more today in this video. So we are actually going to complete a card. To start, we are stamping and heat embossing a floral image to some Canson 140-pound watercolor paper. This floral image is from our Just a Little Lovely stamp set, and it's just got some really beautiful florals, leaves, just some really great images to watercolor. So I was thinking about watercoloring it in white, but then I thought that would not show up very well in the video. So we are going to heat emboss it in gold instead, so that it will be easier to see as we go along with this video. So once you finish heat embossing it, I'm going to pull out my glass media mat again, and we're just going to start watercoloring. So this is my setup. I have my media mat there, and I put a little bit of the watercolor into one of the white reservoirs. It's not technically a reservoir, but you know what I mean. And then I'm going to take a clean water brush, and I'm going to dampen just a few petals. Now when I take the watercolor, I'm just going to put a tiny little bit of the watercolor, not watered down, and take it right to the middle. And as you'll see, I know these petals are a little bit smaller and it's not super easy, it's not super up close, but you want to keep that darker tone of the watercolor towards the center of the flower, and then wipe it off your water brush, and then with your water brush just being damp, pull it out to the ends of the petals, and that will give you that really nice ombre shading. Now, these petals are small enough that you could actually probably dampen more petals at once. I am approaching this how I would approach a larger flower, and I'm only adding water to just a few petals at a time. And when I say, and I'm going to say this again, when I say adding water, I'm just dampening. You don't want to add too much water, or that little bit of watercolor that you put in the center is going to pull out all the way to the ends, and you're not going to be able to do that ombre pull to keep the petal from light to dark. So I've sped up the process here because this video will be forever long if I didn't. So I've done the pink. You'll see when you see the finished image, I go back in and I add a little bit more darkness here and there and into the center. But we're going to go ahead and get going on the orange. I zoomed the video in a little bit closer, so hopefully it's a little bit easier to see. And I am doing the same exact technique here. I am dampening the petals and then adding the Clementine or orange liquid watercolor in its original form just to the center. And then you'll see it seeps out a little bit, and then I wipe off my water brush and pull it out to the end of the petal, and you just get that really lovely ombre shading. This floral is small enough that I could have dampened all of the petals at once, done all of the painting at once, but I just want to show it this way because if you do happen to use this same technique on a larger floral image, you would only want to dampen 2 or 3 petals at a time, maybe even 1, depending on the actual size of the petal, so that you just have more time and more control over the watercolor. This is a really super easy technique. I am not thinking of where the light source is coming from or anything like that. I'm definitely a much simpler watercolor. Mostly I'm just shading in an ombre fashion. So starting at dark in the center where you would expect it to be a little bit darker, and then pulling it out to the edges where it's a little bit lighter. Okay, so now we're going to move on to those little circular pieces. I don't know what those would be considered, leaves, another floral, whatever. One thing you're going to notice different about this one is I didn't actually dampen them, so I didn't add water first. So I took just very small dots of the aquamarine color and put it at the very base of each circle. And then I wiped off my brush and kept it damp and just started pulling out the color in an ombre fashion. As you can see, I wipe my brush off a lot, and that is the key to getting that ombre fade or getting the lighter color or the lightening of the liquid watercolor, is you just want to make sure that you're wiping off excess color as you go. So the final step for watercoloring this piece is the leaves, and I'm using the key lime watercolor for the leaves on this image. And this one is no different. I'm using the same exact technique that I've used for the entire piece, where I add the liquid watercolor in its original form at the base, let it seep, and then just pull it out by wiping off my pen and letting it lighten. Now with the leaves, you do go back to dampening them first and then adding the liquid watercolor. That's the only change that you'll see between that and those little aquamarine other leaves that I was coloring. The other great thing about liquid watercolor is it's very easy if you make a mistake or if you get too much in an area. As you can see, I just wiped some up with my other clean cloth, and it's as simple as that. It wipes up really well, and you can lighten, you can remove an area where I accidentally had colored a leaf in as a petal. Okay, so we are going to move on to another liquid watercolor technique. So I went ahead and I stamped and heat embossed this diagonal tiles background image to the same watercolor paper. And what I'm doing here is I am taking a broad brush or a wide brush, and I am adding the Bubblegum liquid watercolor just at the very top, and then I add water to my brush and paint it down in an ombre fashion. So this is actually just a bigger scale of that first thing that I did with the smaller water brush. Obviously I'm not using a water brush for this, so I do have a water reservoir over there, or a water cup. And you just want to start with your dark color at the top, and then just lighten it down in an ombre fashion. Now pink and orange are complementary colors, and so I'm going to go ahead and add the orange there in the middle of the background and do the same exact technique. So start with the darker color, add some water to your brush, and pull it down. So as you can see, I got a little bit more orange at the bottom than I wanted, and it's super easy to fix. All you do is dry your brush off a lot and then pull it back up. And as you can see, I get that beautiful ombre shading going from the pink and then down into the orange. And you can always add more. As you can see here, I'm adding a little bit more pink and then fading a little bit more pink into the top of that orange, just to make the transition between the two colors a little bit better. And it is easy as that, friends. Now, I am peeling it off here and I'm going to let it dry, but look at how fun and easy that background is. I did want to mention one other thing while that background is drying. So you can also use a palette with our liquid watercolors. Putting them on a glass media mat is awesome, but you wipe it off, and so that might feel wasteful. So when I'm not doing a video, I do use a palette, and you can actually reactivate our dried liquid watercolor there's two ways. The first way that I'm doing here is I just activated it with some water from my water brush. As you can see though, when I use it, because I added water, I did dilute it a little bit. So the color is not as vibrant as it would have been initially. But that's okay. Maybe this is when you're using that lighter shade. The other way that you can activate it is you can actually just add another drop of the liquid watercolor into the reservoir and then get it going with your brush. And you're going to see here in just a minute that it goes back to being that extremely vibrant candy apple in its original form. So you can absolutely reactivate liquid watercolors that have dried in a palette like this, and it's a really great way to not be wasteful. You're not just wiping them off of a media mat when you're done with your crafting session. So those are two really great ways to use our liquid watercolor and lighten them up. They don't have to be used in their complete, vibrant, and original form. So we're going to go ahead and throw this card together. So off camera, I die cut that background using our Essentials stitched rectangles, and then I also die cut the florals from Just a Little Lovely. I'm popping everything up with full panels or strips of foam tape. And as you'll notice, I decided to flip the flower to make sure that the orange flower was more in the pink area of the background and the pink flower was more in the orange area. I stamped a sentiment from the same stamp set onto some white cardstock and then cut it out with our Essentials basic label frames, which are awesome for sentiments on cards. This ink that I used is our new Detail Black ink. It's going to be releasing on Monday. It's a hybrid black ink and it's fantastic. We think you're just going to love it. And definitely check back on our YouTube channel and our blog on Monday for more information. The final step on this card is I am adding some of our Essentials crystals mix as accents here and there. These are actually diamond-shaped crystals, so they're really, really great for shaker cards, but they have that really fantastic flat edge on the diamond side that you can glue them down onto a card base to get a really beautiful, clear accent. I love them as accents, and I love them for shaker cards as well. So this is the card I've used today, lightening up our vibrant and gorgeous liquid watercolors from their original shades. I did use the darker shades kind of just more in the centers, but as you can see, I used them a lot lighter as well. And here are some more cards following these same two techniques that I shared with you, just in different ways. Our liquid watercolors are so fun to use. Friends, they're so easy to use as well. They're super user-friendly. They make watercoloring fun, and I think they also make it easy. So if you ever are struggling or feel like you struggle with watercolor in the past, I highly suggest you grabbing some of these liquid watercolors and trying them out. Thank you so much for watching my video today. I hope that you enjoyed it. I'd love for you to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on anything. And other than that, you guys have a great day.